Hello, everyone. Welcome to Durrett's Sake. I hope you're all having a good weekend. Let's get started. So there's a lot to go over. What I want to do now with free agency approaching is I want to go over my top 30 free agents and predict where they will go. Now, some of this is rumors, some of this is intel, a lot of it's guessing, a lot of it is just kind of mixing and matching, but we'll see how good I am. So the top free agent, let's go with Kawhi Leonard. He hasn't decided whether to opt in or not, to his player option or not, but my guess is he will either opt in his player option, or if he opts out, he will just make a long-term extension, re-sign with the Clippers. Um, there's some recent tensions with Kawhi and the Clippers for some reason, but if you're Kawhi, you're home in LA. This is what you wanted to do. You wanted to be home in LA. And I know this year won't have much of a chance to win championship because you're coming off injury, but the next year you should be able to have a great chance to come off injury. Paul George showed that hey, you can trust him in the playoffs, and if you would have stayed healthy, I feel like Clippers would be winning the title, not the Bucks. So therefore, I feel like Kawhi Leonard should just stay there. The second option is Chris Paul. I feel he hasn't officially declared if he'll opt in his player option. I feel like he will opt out just to get a better long-term deal. I feel like he will stay with the Suns. I feel like the feelings mutual there. The Suns would be crazy to let him go because I feel like they're not going to get a good replacement for him. So they're going to try and do everything they can to bring them back. Now, Chris Paul could have interest somewhere like with the Heat or something like that. But I feel like Chris Paul doesn't want to go to another new team again, especially with this team he just made the finals with. So I feel like he will stay with Phoenix. Mike Conley, I feel like he will stay with the Jazz. There's reports that Jazz are going to offer him a 3-year, $75 million deal. I feel like that's a little bit pricey considering getting up in age and then his injury history. But if you're Jazz, I mean, this is what you have to do. As long as you can get Chris Paul, then Mike Conley is your best option at point guard for the immediate future. So if you're Utah, I feel like they go after him and get him. Kyle Lowry, he's the fourth best free agent in my opinion. This is interesting because there's a bunch of different places to go. He can go back to his hometown in Philly, especially if they're going to trade Simmons. He can go to the Heat. He can go to the Mavs. He can go with the Knicks. There's plenty of different options there as far as where he can go to. I feel like in the end he's going to go to the Heat. He can be with that good. He can stay with a good culture. Cause Toronto's a good culture, good organization, and the Heat's that on steroids. They're a really good culture organization. He's going to be with Jimmy Butler, who is a dog and a leader like Kyle Lowry is as well. And I feel like now with Kyle Lowry's reporting guards to Dragic or Kendrick Nunn, okay, now you can definitely make the second round, if not maybe get to back to Eastern Conference Finals. You can go more than you could this year. For Tim Hardaway Jr., I have him staying with the Mavs. I heard sources that the Mavs want him back, so it's just up to Tim Hardaway Jr. if he wants to come back or not. But I feel like if he wants to go be a second banana somewhere, then he's got to go because he cannot be a second banana on a championship level team. But if he's fine with being that third banana or that guy off the bench, kind of like he was in the playoffs, then he should just stay with the Mavs. And I feel like he will stay with the Mavs. And this is whether Porzingis stays or not. DeMar DeRozan, I feel like this was going to be the Lakers. That's what I originally predicted, but because of the Westbrook trade, now that eliminates that option. So now I feel like DeMar DeRozan is going to go to the Mavs. And here's why: the Mavs have a bunch of cap space, and they need scoring to help Luka, especially when Luka goes to the bench. They need scoring off that bench. They need another veteran leader there because there's still a lot of young players on that team. So DeMar DeRozan can give them that. And DeMar DeRozan, he says he wants to be on a championship contender. Well, if him and Hardaway resigns and the Mavs can make maybe one more nice solid rotation player move, then that's a championship contender. Not saying favorite, but at least contender. So if you can't go to the Lakers, and the Mavs another good option there for DeRozan to go to. Next is Reggie Jackson. Now, he wouldn't normally be this high up, but because of what he did in the playoffs, he's earned this high up to be my top 10. But this was interesting. So originally, I thought he was going to go somewhere else, maybe take like the money from the Knicks, who has a lot of salary space or something. But then I realized, you know what? With if the Lakers and the Nets can both pay for a big three, and then it's like and the Clippers with Steve Ballmer as the owner, they can pay to keep Reggie Jackson there, especially since Reggie Jackson would love to stay there since they resurrected his career. So I feel like in the end he'll stay there. Spencer Dinwiddie. Now this one was a very hard one to predict because he wants to go to home to LA, but the problem is since the Lakers just got Westbrook, that's out. And then for the Clippers, they just drafted a point guard for their future, so they're not going to trade for one that's coming off injury. They'd rather just stick it out with Patrick Beverley and stuff like that. So that's out the table. And then there's interest in maybe the Mavs going after him. I feel like the Mavs would rather get either Kyle Lowry or DeMar DeRozan over Spencer Dinwiddie. So they can land one of those two. That means the Mavs are out. So then there's not a lot of. Then you could think Heat, but if Kyle Lowry goes to the Heat, then the only team that has a lot of money that really could use a scoring point guard is the Knicks. So I feel like he'll stay in New York and go to the Knicks. Victor Oladipo. Now, because he's coming off injury and all that, he's kind of forgotten about. But when healthy, he's a nice, solid starter. So whoever team's lucky to have him, I'm sure will love to have him, whether he's healthy or not. Let's say he's healthy not healthy for most season, but then he can give you some type of run in the playoffs, and that's worth it. And since the Heat trade from last year, I feel like they want to just let him go. So they'll try to re-sign him and keep him. So I feel like he will stay with the Heat. Next option is Norman Powell. So he hasn't officially declared if he's going to opt into his player option or not that he has. I feel like he will to give it like one last, since he just got traded there at the trading deadline. He wants to stay at least another full year, get another run with Damian Lillard while he's there. Next is PJ Tucker, the player option. I feel like he will be looking to opt in and run it back because I feel like the Bucks are a really good fit for him. He's just make a couple threes a game and play really good defense like he did in the finals against Devin Booker and Chris Paul. I feel like his defense was a contributor to them winning. Next is Dennis Schroeder. Now, the Lakers are definitely not going to have him back. I was going to say Clippers, but then again, with their draft decisions and everything, I don't think Clippers would be a good fit anymore. I feel like for him, he thrives on a team that is either non-playoffs or make the playoffs, but nothing more, but not a championship contender. So I feel like a team that kind of fits that description is the Chicago Bulls. Plus, Schroeder fit well with Billy Donovan OKC, and Billy Donovan's head coach at the Bulls. So I feel like that's a nice reunited thing there. Now, the Bulls, I heard, are going to go after Lonzo Ball, but he's a restricted free agent, so I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket on the Bulls. And if you can't get Ball, then you can get Schroeder to pair up with Cody White, and that's a good backcourt there. Next is Richaun Holmes. Now, this one's very hard to predict. I think he's going to go to the Mavs, in my opinion. And if you're thinking, who's Richaun Holmes? This was a very nice center that emerged for the Kings last year. I know it's the Kings, that's why no one pays attention, but he averaged 14 points a game, 8.3 rebounds, which led the team, and then 1.6 blocks a game, which led the team. So he's a good rim protector. He has a chance to get some money to become a star in a bigger market if he wants, like the Knicks, for example. But there's a lot of rumors that the Raptors and Knicks are going to go after him. I don't think he's going to go to Canada. Somebody between the Knicks and then the Mavs, who have the cap space, I feel like can go after him. So therefore, I think Dallas will go hard and make a signing there. So that way, if the Mavs can re-sign Tim Jr. and get DeMar DeRozan and Richaun Holmes, I know there's no Kawhi Leonard like big name like that, but that's the best you can do. That's pretty good. Derrick Rose next. He was a 6-man finalist last year, so while he shouldn't be your starting point guard, he could definitely have enough in the tank to be a good backup point guard for your bench units. I feel like since he reunited with Thibodeau this past year, I feel like that was a good fit for him. He should just stay with the Knicks, and I feel like he will. Bobby Portis, I feel like he has a player option. I feel like he'll opt in and play for the Bucks. Just that crowd loves him, and he loves Morgan. They just kind of fit together, and we saw that in the finals throughout the playoffs, how they kind of fit well together. Next is Nicholas Batum. Batum has been irrelevant for a long time, and all of a sudden he comes to the Clippers, and bam, he's relevant. Now this one's interesting. I feel like he will either stay with the Clippers or go to the Lakers, since the Lakers need another wing defender who can shoot the three ball really well. But I feel like the Clippers are going to push hard to re-sign him, and I feel like Batum will stick there. Cameron Payne, because no one wanted him, and then the Suns all of a sudden took him up, and now he's a good backup point guard. I feel like, well, why go risk going somewhere else where you can just stay with the Suns? So I feel like that's what will happen with Payne. He will run it back with them. Next is Carmelo Anthony. The answer here is the Lakers. I know that I thought this would happen last year when it did, but I know Melo really wants to join LeBron and get that first ring, so Lakers a good chance to do that with. Next is Chris Boucher. He's a center for the Toronto Raptors. You may not know a lot about him, which didn't know a lot about him last year, but he was on my fantasy team, and he got me a lot of production, a lot of points. He averaged 13 points a game, 6.7 rebounds, 1.9 blocks a game. So he's kind of like a Rashawn Holmes, underrated type of player. So I feel like since Toronto doesn't really have much big man, I feel like he will stay with the Raptors. Next is Blake Griffin. Now, I feel like even though he will require a little more money, I feel like the Nets can try to keep him. And I feel like that's a good match there because he's a shooting big man, which you need, and a good rebounder. And he showed that in the playoffs last year he can produce at some level. Now he's not a regular season type player. Again, you're having him just for the playoffs. Next is Evan Fournier. What we saw in the Olympics when France did against USA, he can definitely score. And since he just got traded to the Celtics last year, it would make logical sense for him just to re-sign there because it wouldn't make sense for the Celtics to trade him if he was just going to leave somewhere else. Next is Brian Forbes from Milwaukee. He was the backup point guard for the Bucks, and he was a top 5 3-point shooter, but yet in the finals, because he's a defensive liability, his minutes shrunk a lot. So therefore, it makes sense that he opted out of his player options, looking to go elsewhere. So therefore, I feel like he's going to go to the Lakers here. The Lakers desperately need a backup point guard who can shoot threes, and that's what Brian Forbes can do. Next is Lou Williams, former Sixth Man of the Year. I feel like the prediction here is that since Atlanta just drafted a backup point guard for Trae Young, he's not. I know he loves Atlanta, but he's not going to go back there. I feel like he should go to the 76ers, and here's why. The last time last time Lou Williams worked well, like he was like a typical 6-man a year, was when he was with Doc Rivers. It was with Tyronn Lue that he kind of felt the math, and that's why they ended up trading him to Atlanta. So I feel like he can be reunited with Doc Rivers here and get that scoring boost off the bench that 76ers desperately need. Next is 76ers member Danny Green. I feel like he won't stay there. I feel like he's going to be on the move once again. Now, it's hard for me to predict on this one. I feel like he's going to go with the Clippers here and be reunited with Kawhi. Because especially the Clippers can always use a bunch of 3D guys on better deals. I feel like Danny Green would be willing to do that. Next is Torrey Craig from Phoenix. I feel like he will stay with the Suns here since they just traded for him last year and be another 3D guy the Suns need. Kelly Oubre Jr. This is interesting. So the Golden State requirement thought he was going to be kind of like, he can't be that Wiggins type. He can be that third banana, but it's just like, he's a horrible 3-point shooter, and he ended up getting injured. So I feel like in this case, an offensive team desperate for scoring is going to be the only team really wants it. In this case, that'd be the Knicks. The Knicks need offense scoring. Therefore, Kelly Oubre Jr. can go there and sign a big deal. Next is Rudy Gay. I feel like he will go to the Lakers because there's rumors he wants to play with LeBron and finally win that ring. So I feel like that's a good fit for Rudy Gay. Next is Enes Kanter. I feel like he will stay with the Blazers, especially Nurkic with his injury history, and plus he loves playing with Dame. So I feel like it just makes sense for him to play in Portland as long as Portland wants him back. Next is Markieff Morris. I feel like LeBron does not want him back after what happened in the playoffs this past year. So I feel like he will go to the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets can use more bench scoring from the power forward position off the bench. And with this toughness and veteran leadership, I feel like that could be good for Denver. And last but not least, Kelly Olynyk. I feel like he should go to the Jazz, and the Jazz should make a hard push for him. Because what the Jazz need, a backup center to Rudy Gobert, preferably who can shoot the ball, and that's what Kelly Olynyk could do. Now, Jazz are going to be Kelly's option, so you might have to do a sign trade for like maybe Joe Ingles or something like that. I don't know, or do a sign trade of George Niang or something like that. But Kelly Olynyk would be the perfect big man for the Jazz to go get, so that they can finally have their backup center to Rudy Gobert. So thank you very much for listening to my podcast today. Please subscribe to my channel and tell about me. Thank you very much. You all have a wonderful day.